We are joined this morning by the National Chief of the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, Chief Dwight Dorey, joining us on the program this morning. Good morning, Chief Dorey. How are you doing?
Good morning, Wally. I'm doing quite well, thank you.
I want to thank you so much for joining us on the program today. It's another big day for the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples. You had been on this tour of the country and basically talking with off-reserve people living in a lot of the urban areas. And that's basically the mandate of the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples. Is that correct? Working with off-reserve Aboriginal people?
That is correct, Wally, and things are going quite well in that regard. We're getting a fair number of people showing up to these open house forums, and at the same time, I'm also visiting some of the various community service organizations, and things are going quite well. I'm quite pleased with the fact that a lot of people are showing up and wanting to learn about the Congress.
Now, when did you get involved with the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples?
Well, look, I just got elected this last time as National Chief in September, but this, in fact, is my fourth time as the National Executive of the Congress, or former NCC, Native Council of Canada, going back to 1977. So I've been around for quite a little while. I'm quite familiar with the lie of the land, the issues, and the only thing that seems to change primarily is governments and government's priorities.
So this is where you guys come in to really, I guess, have all levels of governments and peoples all working together as one.
Yes, that's one of the, I guess, key focuses, in particular for me, and I know some of the other Indigenous leaders as well, in light of this new federal government and the kind of message that's been coming out from the Prime Minister, in particular, that he views and sees the Indigenous populations in Canada as being a priority matter for all Canadians.
And so far, it seems to, when you look at what the government is doing now, the new government, so far they seem to be doing what they're saying, but then you guys come in to make sure that is going to stay that way, and they're going to help the people.
That's true, Wally. The one concern that I've had to address with the Prime Minister already is that what he's been talking about fairly consistently is two things. One is a nation-to-nation kind of process that's required, and then also going back to the Kelowna type of agreement, which it's a bit of a gray area on that aspect. When it comes to a nation-to-nation process, it begs the question, well, how does an organization like the Congress, advocating for more than 65% of the Indigenous population in Canada, scattered about, representing all kinds of First Nations people, Métis, non-status. How do we fit into this nation-to-nation kind of concept? And I think we're in the process of working that out between his office at the PMO and myself.
Well, and where this tour also comes in as well, you've been visiting communities across the country, and this evening you make your stop out in Edmonton, where you've got a town hall style meeting set for this evening.
Yes, that's right. That's basically what we've been doing in the various locations we have been stopping at, and most of these are being held, with the exception of weekend meetings, and there are some of those. During the week, we hold them later in the afternoon and into the evening, so that people who are workers out or family people can have a chance to get out and still hear what the Congress is all about. The other flip side of that is it's very important for me, and I'm trying to encourage people to come out if they have concerns, issues, and even ideas about how things can be done better to serve their needs. For me, it's kind of a simple message about how do we improve the quality of life of off-reserve Indigenous peoples in this country.
Has that been one of the most common questions you've been getting from people so far on this tour?
Well, there's no really common theme developing yet. It's a cross-section of issues for people, right from things like, housing needs, health needs, to accessing their Aboriginal and treaty rights.
We're speaking with the National Chief of the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, Dwight Dorey, who is going to be in Edmonton this evening for the third National Grassroots Engagement Tour. Now, it's happening at the Delta Edmonton Centre Suite Hotel, the sixth floor in the Queen Elizabeth Room. That is taking place at about, is it about 5:30 this afternoon?
Yes, from 5:30 till about 8, or however long the process requires with the participants.
Now, have you been getting a great turnout with this tour, with people coming out and taking part and voicing their concerns?
Well, it varies. Kind of typically at the early start of it, the numbers were fairly low. But our last session, we had over 50 people in Calgary.
Now, you are in Edmonton here this evening. When did this tour start, actually?
It actually started just before the Christmas holidays. I was in British Columbia and had sessions in Vancouver, Victoria, and Kamloops. But then it was the change of government and things that happened very quickly with that, invitations to the swearing in. Combine that with the Christmas holiday time, that kind of interrupted things. So last week I got started back on this process again. So between now and probably early March, I'll be covering the rest of the country, working from west to eastward.
Now, with the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, there are, in addition to this tour, there are a lot of other projects that are involved as well, that you're involved with.
Yes, most certainly. One of the key things that we're looking at now, although we have been involved in delivering education and training programs, and there's been announced that there's going to be a cap removed on that portfolio, that we're going to be looking at how we can increase the resources for education and employment training in particular, because it's a growing need. And, as you well know, particularly in areas out here, like with the downturn in the oil and gas industry, people are going to be looking for alternatives. So that's one of the key things. On a more ongoing and permanent process, I'm engaged now with the federal government in renegotiating our bilateral agreement between the Congress and the federal government, and that's going to be a more constant means of us working together, because partnership is basically the message that the Prime Minister talked about, inclusion and partnership.
And with this tour this evening, and with the folks coming out to take part, it's very important for them to come out, because without them, we're not going to get the answers that we want, or they want, addressed.
That's correct, Wally. And the other thing too is I'm also taking up the opportunity of meeting with the provincial and municipal governments. I had a good meeting here with some of the members of the Aboriginal Affairs section of the provincial government, and when I was in Calgary with one of the ministers there. So it's also about informing them of what some of the issues are, why I'm here, introducing them to the Congress, and again, open the door to lines of communication so that we can work together better, that I can be there if they have questions or concerns that they want to raise regarding the off-reserve people. So it is important for people to get out to feel what I've been told. There's been a lack of that kind of connection, and in particular with the national leaders to better represent their needs and also have that link so they know where to go to address these kinds of needs.
All right. Well, to get these needs addressed, they could come on out this evening. The Delta Edmonton Centre Suite Hotel, the Queen Elizabeth Room, that's the 6th floor at 102 22102 Street in downtown Edmonton. And that gets underway at about 5:30 this afternoon. So a perfect time because that's when a lot of people getting off work so they could just come on down and take part in the meeting.
That's right. And we're going to have some refreshments there for them as well.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Chief Dorey, for taking part and joining us on the program here this morning. And we wish you all the best on the rest of the tour.
Wally, I appreciate the opportunity to have this chat and get the message out, and look forward to seeing you again or talking to you sometime in the near future.